Hello everyone, welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we're taking a look at the first new hero from the new set, part the Mistveil, Enigma Ledger of Ancestry. Even though there's only 3 heroes this set, I do plan on making 6 deck videos for the 3 new heroes, since Enigma can either be built with Cosmo or Iris. Zen can be built in a fully aggressive Bonds way or a standard ninja, and new can probably be built 2 ways. I'm going to wait on her because I'm not sure if it'll settle on fully one way, but we'll have to wait and see. But I know Enigma and Zen can be built in 2 entirely different ways, so we're definitely going to do 2 videos for each of them. But for now, let's start with the way I think most people are going to be playing Enigma, with Cosmo, Enigma's signature weapon. But with all that said, let's get started. Enigma Ledger of Ancestry is a 4 intellect, 40 health illusionist hero. I wish they stopped doing this. Illusionists do not deserve to be 40 health, especially considering that Enigma's main mechanic ward is just more health. But oh well. Your first Spectral Shield attack each turn costs 1 less. That's pretty nice when we look at what Cosmo does. And once per turn for a Chi, you can create a Spectral Shield token with a +1 power counter, letting you swing with that shield for free pretty much, because Cosmo lets you attack with your ward auras as though they were weapons, with base power equal to their ward for only 1 resource. Since Spectral Shields have 1 ward, they will come in for 1 power. Enigma will give it a counter if it's the one from her ability, and the first one will be free. So you can get a free 0 for 2 each turn, which is pretty nice. As well as, this weapon gives all of your auras with +1 counters go again. Oh, your aura attacks with +1 counters go again. So this can let you get pretty wide turns. Of course, illusionists aren't known for their biggest numbers. They're known for their wider boards. Of course, they have some big numbers, but things do get popped. Cosmo allows you to play a very aggressive game, similar to what you would do with the original Luminaris, where you'd set up a huge board and then just come in with everything. Unlike Dromai, none of them can get popped. It's purely just, can you hit Enigma to make her lose her auras? For the equipment, Traverse the Universe is just the best helmet. This is a 2-block blade break that, when it defends, let you search your deck for an inner chi and put it into your hand. This is really, really strong, since with Enigma you can pitch the inner chi to get a free shield, or there are a few cards in this deck that really want you to pitch inner chi for it that are incredibly strong. For chess piece, we just have Tunic. There really is not an illusionist chess piece that you want to be running, since I think there's only one and it isn't very good. Uphold Tradition are the gloves that we are going to be playing. These are another new equipment. They are Mystic Illusionist arms, and they have Cloaked, which means they will start the game face down. They have an instant for a resource to turn them face up, and put a +1 counter on an aura you control with ward, which is really nice since that means your weapon will give it go again. And then these themselves have ward 1, so you can get a little bit of protection from them. The final piece of equipment in this deck is Phantasmal Footsteps. This is purely because we are not really using the new shoes at all. I think if you're going to be playing a Illusionist shoe, you're only going to put one of them into your deck, and Phantasmal Footsteps are the one we're deciding to go with for this deck, simply because there are a few cards that do care about having a blue in our pitch zone, and if we can't get an effect that would let us pitch a card, this is a guaranteed effect that does actually do that. As well as into some aggressive decks, this card is very strong. Things like New, this can block Beckoning Mistblade. Things like Zen and Katsu, this can block a Tiger or a Kadachi. So just a pretty decent card all around. Before we talk about the main board, we're going to talk about some of our sideboarded equipment. We just have three Arcane Barrier. Silent Stilettos are going to be our shoe Arcane Barrier, since into those wizards they probably won't bring in poppers for our 6 attacks that can get popped, and we don't really need footsteps to block in that matchup. Norn Gloves are here just for more consistent protection, other than the Ward 1. And Crown Reflection does not usually want us to use its active. It's mainly here because it's AB1 and it's better than just Norn Hood. But Silent Stilettos and Crown Reflection will come in versus Wizards specifically, since the 2 equipment they're replacing's usual functionality is to block. Into Vinset, I would consider Silent Stilettos over Phantasmal Footsteps as well. It just depends if you think they are on their flail, because if they're on the flail, you do want the footsteps. If they're not, you'd prefer to have your 1AB be the stilettos. And then Norman Gloves do have some upside, some downside. I think you always want Tunic, just because of how versatile it is. So you don't want Northern Robe, and Northern Glove does replace Uphold Tradition, which it lets you be a little more aggressive. But just like how ninjas probably will end up replacing their arms into Runeblade instead of their leg, or specifically Zens will be replacing their arm into Runeblade instead of their legs because of how strong their legs are, that Northern Gloves is probably still worth it to go over the glove slot. Next, let's talk about the deck's main board. I'm going to start with the auras, since they're the main core of what Enigma wants to be doing. We have 2 red auras in the main board, Waning Vengeance and Waxing Spectre. Waxing Spectre is a 2-cost Mystic instant. It has Ward 3, and if you've pitched a blue card this turn, it enters with a +1 counter. It's pretty nice with Cosmo, since for just a blue pitch, you can play this and come in for 4 with Go again, as well as it's a nice defensive tool for later, since it is 3 ward. Waning Vengeance is a 1-cost aura for 3 ward. It's also an instant, of course, and when it leaves the arena, if you've pitched a blue this turn, you make a Spectral Shield, which is pretty nice on defense, since it can give you some Spectral Shields to get a little more HP, or it can be a nice 2 for 3 to end off a chain. We only have 1 yellow aura in the deck, and that's Restless Coalescence. But Restless Coalescence is nothing to be underestimated. This is one of the best cards you can be playing. It's a 0-cost yellow instant, and it has Ward 2. When it enters the arena, you can move any number of +1 counters from auras you control onto it, and once per turn, as an instant, you can remove a counter to make a Spectral Shield. This card has incredible synergies with Shimmers of Silver, since this can come in every turn and give you more shields, as well as it's just an insanely strong defensive tool that can let you block exact amounts of ward, and it can be a good offensive tool since you can move counters onto it to give it Go again. This is one of the best cards in the deck. I wouldn't play it without it. Skipping over the action auras, we'll talk about them after we talk about the rest of the instants. Manifestations of Miragai is one of the 2 cards we really care about having a chi for. This is a 3-cost blue Mystic instant, and when it enters the arena, it gets 2 counters, but if a chi was pitched to play it, instead it gets 4. It has Ward X, where X is the number of counters on it, which is great, since that means it gets double its counters in power, letting this come in for a 1 for 8 with Go again if we've pitched a chi to play it, making this one of the best offensive cards in the deck, and even a great defensive card, since combined with Uphold Tradition and Shimmers of Silver, you can increase its ward with its counters, as well as double its offensive power. The final instant aura in this deck is Phantom Tidemaw. This is 0-cost instant from a pretty not super popular set, but it is here. Phantom Tidemaw actually gets to be useful. When an Illusionist card you control is destroyed, you put a counter on it. It has Phantasm and Ward 1. making this, I believe, the only aura in the game to have Phantasm on it, which is pretty interesting, but this can definitely come in for a lot of damage later. Decks that don't play poppers, this will be an insanely strong card. And it's another thing that can easily get Go Again. Next, let's talk about the action auras in which we play 3. Starting with Haze Bending. Haze Bending is a 0-cost action aura. It blocks 2. And it has Spectra, of course. Spectra is still a mechanic. However, it's not as strong with Cosmo since you can't attack with these auras. It still has an extremely strong effect though. Whenever Haste Bending or another aura is destroyed, you create a Spectral Shield, which means that you can get so much extra health just from a Haze Bending being in play, and if your opponent wants to get rid of it, they'll have to waste an attack into it instead of throwing it straight at you. And Shimmers of Steel is another once per turn effect aura that's a 0-cost 2-block. It says whenever you attack with an Illusionist or a weapon, you put a +1 counter on it. This, again, is incredibly strong with Manifestations of Mirror Guy, as well as just your weapon itself, since you're guaranteeing that the card you're attacking with will have Go Again, since it's getting a +1 counter. The last aura in the main board is Rage Spectre. This is a new card. It's a 2-cost 3-block blue. Whenever it enters the arena, if you control no other Illusionist auras, you gain an action point. And during your turn, this is Ward 6, otherwise it has Ward 1. Be careful not to play this when you have a shield or a Haze Bending or Shimmers in play, because you won't get the action point back. But this card is incredibly strong and can get you some really strong aggressive turns, since if this is your only aura, it can come in as a 3-for-6, and you can even make auras after it to try and push your advantage even further, giving this a +1 counter with Shimmers or Uphold Tradition as well. Shimmers would be a little hard, but with Uphold Tradition could be a great idea if you want a big aggressive turn. If you, say, have a 6-card hand off tutoring a Chi with Traverse, and you can play Rage Spectre and Manifestations in one turn, that would be an insane turn to have. Looking at the rest of the deck, Ancestral Etchings is a very good card. This is an extremely strong tool that lets you put more counters on your auras. Mainly, you'll want to be using these on your Manifestations to get extra effectiveness, but you can also use it on Restless Coalescence to make more shields, or something like a Rage Spectre to give it Go Again. This deck plays the red and the blue. The blue is mostly here to pitch or give Go Again, but the red is our main power card that we want to be saving for Manifestations or Restless Coalescence. Miraging Metamorph is the only Illusionist attack in the deck. It's here because if your opponent decides to pop it, we have so many instant auras here that we can just get so much value. Using it on a Manifestations would be great, since we can get a free 2-counter one, but we can even use it on something like a Waxing Spectre or a Waning Vengeance just to get some extra health. This card punishes your opponent so much for popping it, it's super strong. Hold the Line is a great defensive option. It usually doesn't come out because it's blue, and it'll be really good versus aggro decks that'll try to draw more cards, especially when you want to protect your auras in those matchups a lot. The 3 prevention can be extremely strong. Levels of Enlightenment is one of the best cards coming out of Part the Misfell. It's sort of like an Enlightened Strike, but you get to choose all the modes on it, which is incredibly strong. Enigma has a very good chance to actually activate multiple modes, since she has a very good hero ability, as well as all of her auras cost 1 to attack with, so you can get exact numbers of cards in your pitch zone. Mainly you'll be choosing Go Again, but there'll definitely be a lot of situations that you can choose the draw or +2 power. Second Tenet of Chi Wind is a card that cares about us transcending. We have a lot of ways to do so, and I think this is one of the better attacks that care about it. The +2 or draw card 1 don't seem as strong. I'd rather have Go Again, and as well as it's just a blue block 3 if we need to block or pitch it. And the last card we're going to talk about that isn't a Transcend card is Unravel Aggression. This is a second card that's extremely strong with our helmet. Blocking with our helmet lets us get a chi, and then we can pitch that chi to this to draw. It is a very strong defense reaction, and again, it's blue, so it will always stay in the deck, similar to Hold the Line. When you don't have a chi, it can feel a little weak, but if you can transcend the turn you want to actually block with it, say you do have 2 instants, you can pitch one of those chi away to this and get a new card, which is really good. Finally, for the main board, let's talk about our chi. We are playing 6. The ones we aren't playing are the ones that specifically need to target attacks, which means we are playing Homage to Ancestors, Passover, Preserve Tradition, Rising Sun, Setting Moon, Sacred Art Immortal Lunar Shrine, and Stir the Pot. We're not playing the attack target ones since they do generally feel a little weak. The -1 power one can be useful in some matchups, but I personally don't like it all too much. And the +1 power and go again ones do definitely have their uses. The go again is very nice with your Rage Spectre, and the +1 power can help you in mirror matches, but they're not in the deck. If you wanted to add them, you definitely can. I just prefer not to play them in this deck. Moving on to the sideboard, our main board is a 51 card main board, which means you'll be trying to add 9 cards pretty much all the time. Starting with our base defenses, Fate Foreseen and Sink Below at 3 copies each. This is just because they're premier defense reactions. We'll be wanting them in most of our matchups. We have 3 red unmovable and 3 That All You Got. These are here dependent for the matchup we're playing against. If we're playing against a Go Tall deck, we'll want to bring in unmovable so we can get some high number blocks. But if we're playing against a Go Wide deck, we'll want to bring in That All You Got so we can get some extra card advantage and some free defense. Battlefront Bastion is our premier popper. Yes, popping in the mirror isn't the best thing since one thing you don't want to pop, but you'll definitely want to be able to get rid of those Phantom Tide Maws on your opponent's turn. But even then, in a mirror match or any matchup you just want to bring in a strong 3 for 7, mainly aggro decks as well, this can get you to prevent 2 whole attacks, which can be incredibly big, since if this defends alone, you prevent 1 damage, that'll be dealt to you this turn, which is really good. The last 2 cards in the sideboard let us be a little more aggressive. Spectral Manifestations is a 2-cost action that makes a Spectral Shield. Then, if we control no other Illusionist auras, we put 3 counters on that shield. This is a great aggressive tool, good into any deck that can't specifically deal with 1 aura. Decks that don't play any removal of prevention, this card will be strong into, because it'll allow us to protect this 1 shield, and then grow it with things like our Ancestral Etchings, and then every turn have just a free whatever power shield to come in at our opponent, even after we defend with our full 4-card hand. And then finally, Haste Shelter is here as another decent aggressive tool. This one is a little stronger versus your wizard matchups since it can be a 4 ward, but you can still even bring it in when you want to be a little more aggressive since it can be another 2-cost aura that's a 4 power ward. Of course, we do need a blue in our pitch zone, but thankfully we are on Phantasmal Footsteps, so if we do get a turn that we can't pitch to play an instant aura, we can still turn on the Haze Shelter. And most matchups will be wanting to bring in Sink Below Fate Foreseen with either Unmovable or That All You Got. In matchups that can't deal with a specific aura, we'll be bringing in Spectral Manifestations. Or matchups that can't push through our auras as often, we'll want to be bringing in Spectral Manifestations. Matchups that Battlefront Bastion is good into, we'll be wanting to bring that one in. Think Ninjas, think Assassin, and think Illusionist Mirrors. Haze Shelter will mainly come in versus Kano, but if you think it's good into some matchups, other matchups you can bring it in. And Immovable and I already talked about. With all that, that's going to be the end of the video. Next week, we'll be taking a look at a Zen list, and then the week after, New. Afterwards, we'll take a look at another Enigma or Zen list. It depends on which one I want to do first. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.